Welcome, everybody. How's everyone doing today? We are hanging out on the Make 'em Awesome podcast. It is a solo episode. Ain't nothing wrong with that, though. Just getting the old self-promotion stuff out there for people so they know what we're doing and when we're doing it. That reminds me, if you're just joining in, you might be joining in a little bit late. Make sure leave a like and get subscribed because we do these live basically every single weekend. Earth might be a fun one because I don't yet know what we're going to do for Earth, and that also reminds me I need to mute my computer noises. Sorry about that. But we're going to be talking all about scope creep. Scope creep is one of the most dangerous things for inventing and small business. It's really for making in general. Scope creep is so dangerous. And for those that don't know what scope creep or what feature creep is, it's the shiny object syndrome. It's the, ooh, shiny, I want to do that. Ooh, shiny, I want to do that. It's the, I have a product that, maybe it's a pair of flush cutters, but all of a sudden it now needs to also have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Why does it need to have those? And what that does is it adds a ton of complexity, a ton of time, and a ton of money. So let's kind of talk about the fundamentals of scope creep, how you can feel it coming on, and how we can kind of deal with the problems that it presents, right? Because scope creep is a massive problem. If you don't know how to handle it, it is going to be a problem. And that is what I worry about for the fair lot of us, right? We kind of suck at dealing with the shiny object syndrome. So how do we manage the actual problems that it presents to us? How you doing, Mr. Red/Ace Peter Sassman? How you doing, dude? So I guess let's back up. Let's talk about scope creep and feature creep. They are one and the same, right? Pretty much the same thing ultimately when you look at what they mean, right? Scope creep and feature creep, scope and feature, synonymous with each other. Better for SEO to use both, so I'm using both. And Peter's probably one of the guys that knows a lot about the scope creep and feature creep because he does make a lot of electronic components, and electronics is really one of the easiest places to get lost in features rather than the KISS principle, keep it stupid simple, or keep it simple stupid, depending on, how you're feeling about yourself that day. But scope creep happens to basically everybody, and makers are uniquely guilty of it consistently. We really want to have all the features right now. And that means that sometimes things don't go well because we're stuck trying to iterate constantly. And I'm finding myself victim of this like right now with the politician. For those that don't know what the politician is, and I'm bad because I forget to do this in the channel videos, but for those who don't know what the politician is, it is our answer to chamber heaters, both for FDM and specifically for MSLA and SLA. It is about 63 millimeters square and has carbon filter media as well as a pretty serious heater. But currently, we've just been using an E3D V6 block, an E3D V6 heater, and a 40 millimeter square heatsink. And I've been bonding those together with some thermal epoxy, drilling and tapping a hole for a bolt to make sure everything is functionally put together. But then I said, well, what if we just milled it out of a block of billet? Well, what if we just milled it out of a block of regular aluminum? A billet versus non-billet, there are some things in that. But looking at reducing my load time, because each of those takes me about 12 minutes to assemble, to the kit version, which is the problem. Because if we want to sell these at $50 a piece, which is my goal is a $50 price point to the end consumer, we have to make sure that we reduce the amount of time, human time, that things take. Because machine time is cheap. Machines can run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as much as I believe that I can also do that, my body will eventually say, it's time for you to go to sleep. whether you like it or not. And I also don't want to deal with tapping holes manually for every single one of these that we sell. So what I could do is release a version 1 that's maybe $65, right? And I do it all manually, and that's just how it works for the first maybe 50 or 100. So we verify that we have, a foothold in the industry. Well, I said, screw it, let's just go to the machined aluminum from the beginning. Thankfully, I have a pretty good working relationship with a few machine shops in the area, one of which is our injection molding facility that we do, when people basically time out of 3D printing. Eventually, you get to a point where 3D printing doesn't make financial sense anymore. Then you have to go to injection molding. He's one of the guys that we send basically all of the work to. He gets first right of refusal. So it only makes sense that I go to him and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Can you hook it up? Because we do trade work back and forth pretty often. And if we can kind of wipe each other's invoices away and we just trade man time and, resources, we know what our profit margins are. It's a better business for both of us. So, anyways. We got Halo 3 fans says, I keep trying to iterate on my stuff like my printers, and every time something breaks due to my inexperience. Now I understand the don't touch a working printer the community always says. Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it unless you have a spare, right? So if you have multiple printers, take one down and screw around with it unless you need it for a project. That's why I always say have at least one more printer than you need. But that's also my pack rat talking, my hoarder talking. We have 40 machines, and it is not often that we need all 40 of them. In fact, we probably only need like 6 to 8 right now. But it is common that we need more. Mind you, 11 of those are resin printers because there are 10 different types of materials that we print in for resin. And it's just cheaper for me to buy a dedicated printer for every one of the materials for resin than it is to deal with changing tanks, moving stuff over. Again, it is about personnel time. And if I can reduce the amount of time that it takes to do a project, I vastly increase my profit margins. Because when we look at from a business standpoint and from an invention standpoint, your largest expenditure on a project is going to be people. Whether you're paying a product development firm like 3D Musketeers to build your product for you, or you're hiring an engineer maybe from Fiverr, Upwork, or whatever, good luck. Those are hit or miss. Sometimes you find people and they're freaking amazing. But often you find people, because you're going to look for one of the cheaper ones, who just don't give a damn about your project. And that's why we recommend that, yes, you will pay more money to work with 3D Musketeers. At the time of this live stream, it is $150 an hour to work with 3D Musketeers. But we know what the hell we're doing. We give you accurate quotes up front. And if there are ever any issues, we take care of it at the time. So, yeah, it's the reason to work with product development firms. But it's also because we can keep you away from the new shiny object syndrome. Because, yeah, it is common, right? We're working with actually with Neil, previous podcast guest, actually was last week. He wants to do a 3D printed watch. And I had mentioned that we can make it out of titanium for him. And so we're looking at what we need to do to modify his current parts, pieces, and all of that. And then, now we're looking at what can we do to change it? What can we do to add stuff? What can we do to remove stuff? Because ultimately, feature creep will absolutely murder a project. And it's even common with regular, printed parts. Great example. This is a part that I did last night, actually, printing it today. This is a door slide for a 1980s era powerboat. It's got a pair of 502 big block motors in it and can easily hit about 65, 70 knots. And I guess they're known for their hulls. This piece is clearly handmade. There's nothing on this that does not scream, I am handmade. From the fact that the chamfers don't match each other to the fact they don't even match from left to right. This looks like someone put it on the edge of a disc grinder and actually, made it, basically chamfered it by hand. I chamfered it by a machine, right? I did it in CAD because there's no point in me doing it by hand. But clearly, the engineers that built this knew that this was going to be a thing. And they also knew that it was going to be easier for them to just have a lackey, or maybe it was an arm of some sort, to go in and do the actual sanding method than it was for them to try to machine it. Now, mind you, this was back, 40 years ago, more or less, when technology wasn't as good as it is now. Now, I would chamfer those on the machine, but literally they're printing right back there. Like, I started the print 10 minutes before we started this podcast, so they'll be running throughout the podcast. How you doing, Doomed Paints? Hope you're doing well. But yeah, feature creep is dangerous. And, there are so many different ways that you can attack projects, and Peter might probably be a great guest for this episode, actually. But didn't think about that at the time, only thinking about it now. So let's talk about how it can get away from you. Because in a small business, right, even a 3D printing business, a maker business, whatever it might be, you can really watch yourself. Instead of doing scope creep or feature creep, you look at target market creep. And it is very common for a 3D printing business to deal with that, because if it isn't immediately clear to those, it is very, very easy to just change your target market or add a new target market without understanding that it's going to take a lot of marketing, a lot of research, a lot of just basic effort to make something like this function properly. And I hate to say it, but I'm guilty as charged, right? For many years, scope creep and target market creep are what kind of held 3D Musketeers back. But now that we're looking to refine who we work with and what we do and why we do it, I'm seeing a lot more of my time going into useful things rather than me just effectively spinning my wheels and not getting a whole lot done. And as I've talked about, burnouts are fun. Well, in cars at least. And that's great, but eventually you pop your tires, and that's where burnout from humans comes in, where you just keep spinning your wheels and you're not moving in a productive direction. This is what is caused by scope creep, especially in electronic projects. It's why effectively right now, we're not really taking on electronics projects. It's not worth it to me. There's a lot of issues right now with electronics projects in general. The big one being supply chains. For those that don't remember, human malware is still a problem. 2020. I can't say that word on YouTube. So human malware. Thanks, Steve from Gamers Nexus, for that one. That's a great way to describe it. But it showed us how vulnerable the electronics industry is to worldwide supply chain failures. And it's because they've been operating on a just-in-time inventory system where they don't maintain a stock of components for a reasonable amount of time. But that's also because some of these companies are selling billions of dollars of products every quarter, and holding an inventory for any appreciable amount of time would add so much money to their expenses that it doesn't make financial sense, because a lot of these companies are, well, publicly traded, and that means their duty is to, first and foremost, their shareholders. That's a whole nother bag of chips that I don't want to get into today, but one day we'll do a podcast about private versus public businesses. I have to bring in a buddy of mine that does stock work. But when we look at the electronic shortages and supply chain, we have projects that have been in our shop for almost 2 years now that we still cannot get parts for, and they're just waiting around. We currently have a waiver that when anyone says their product has electronics in it, I immediately send them this waiver. And it talks about that we are unable to control global supply chain, and we will not go out of our way to make special purchases unless we are being paid to do so. We have a client that wants one prototype that is asking me to spend $250,000 to do their one prototype, and they can go pack rocks for as far as I'm concerned. I do not care. I am not spending $250,000 for your $500 prototype. Get the hell out. It is unreasonable to expect that from anybody, let alone a small business. And so now we have a waiver. that states all of this, that we are unable to control global supply chain. And that means that when you start your prototyping and your board development for electronics, it is very often that you run into, oh crap, that chip's no longer available, or oh, the inventory on these chips is getting low. How do we solve it? Well, unfortunately, a lot of times you have to go back to the drawing board. And that's not as easy as saying, well, why don't we just find another chip that's the exact same thing, that fits the exact same package size? Because it's not always available. And a lot of times you have to just deal with it. And that kind of sucks. Doom Paint says, on the topic of electronic shortages, what do you think, when do you think that they might be back? Tired of paying over $100 for a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pis are routinely in stock at Adafruit Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday mornings, right around 11 to 11:30. You're stuck at one per order, but hey, it's retail price. Alternatively, you can get the CanaKit Ultimates from Best Buy. They run about $100, but they come with everything, including a power supply, a case, a fan for the case, a 64 gig micro SD card, HDMI cord. So they come with a lot of the stuff that you would normally be buying for your Pi. And yeah, you're paying a little bit more, but you can get them basically in 2 days shipped to your home. So gotta love it. Hey, doing Mad Cat USA. And guys, if you do want more people in the chat, we only have like 6 people, which is weird. Maybe the subject isn't a big one for people. Share it out with your community. Retweet us over on Twitter, Facebook groups, although those, I don't know about Facebook groups, man, sometimes. But yeah, if you want to see more people in these streams, share them out with others. Building morons are expensive because of the Pi, he says, forons. But what's the difference, .jpg? I am told that there are some boxes out there for like Kodi and some of the other streaming boxes that run on generic Raspberry Pis. Inux from, oh my God, I'm going to forget his company name. He is in Slovakia. What is Inux's company name? Son of a gun. He is hanging out with Fotis. That means I can go to Fotis's Discord and find it. Shoot. Sorry, guys. I am so not remembering this, but, oh, it is. It's Inux 3D. Left Harris. It's Left Harris at Inux 3D. Excuse me. He found that you can buy these streaming boxes that are effectively Raspberry Pis. They run Raspbian, and you can reflash them with whatever you want. Pooch from Repcord posted about it. I will put his tweet in the chat for you guys. But the thing that he bought recently is a Pi. So let me copy the link to the tweet, and I'm tossing it in the YouTube chat now. That is effectively a Raspberry Pi, and you can reprogram them as far as I'm concerned. But yes, I've been looking at Vorons. I just don't know if I'm really ready to spend that much money on a kit. So that's just something that, I probably just need to deal with on my own, and talk about it amongst myself. But Red/A says, Mitch and I have been looking at Voron and some other large printers. Maker Viking is working on one, and I think that might be something that I build just to support my buddy Maker Viking. And, objectively, he has a pretty awesome printer that he's building. And thank you for the tweet, Mad Cat. I appreciate it. But yeah, feature creep is such a problem with these electronic projects because, yeah, you can go from just needing like a Arduino Nano to a Raspberry Pi pretty quickly, or an ESP32. So like I recently bought a bundle of 6 Pi 3Bs from Reddit for $35 a piece. Like, I was glad that I was paying retail for them when they're the old model. I'm like, well, damn it. I don't really have an option. It's pay retail for these 6 or, don't have Pis. Everyone needs Pis. Doom Paint says get a V0 or even a Trident. Such a great experience and a good stream topic. Per Divisions 3D says, hello, how you doing? I have thought about it, but so many of the other content creators have done V0s, and little tiny printers don't do it for me. If I want a tiny printer, I'm going to go get a Prusa Mini because they're cheap and they work and they're nice and they have a great support system. And apparently, according to one of our Patreon members, patreon.com/3D Musketeers, you know, shameless self-promotion there, that there are kits from Tech that are Prusa Mini clones that are like $250 and are damn near the same thing. So I might give that a shot and try to compare it, but I feel like that's kind of mean to Prusa. I don't know. I like Prusa, and I don't want to harm them by showing off the clones. I don't have a relationship with them. I just feel like, you know, it's the same reason I don't use cloned E3D parts anymore, because I want to support the companies that support open source, not the companies that, you know, clone it and make profit without contributing anything. So, but apparently they've even like copied the freaking buddy board, which is absolutely insane. The Rat Rig is a printer that I've been looking at, but similarly, Rat Rig is playing the game that I don't like. They're just deciding that all of a sudden they're going to go closed source on their stuff and no longer contribute to open source. And that's a bit of a pain in the ass. And I know people that have built Rat Rigs, and it is a hit or miss for them. Sometimes they work great, other times they don't. But it's also the people that try to feature creep their printers, right? Oh, well, maybe I want to put it on the Wi-Fi. Maybe I want to be able to, you know, watch it via an IP cam that runs off of the printer. Maybe I'm going to add spaghetti detection to it, or, you know, the Obico or Quinley or some of the other ones. There are all these little things that we as makers say, add it, add it, add it, add it, add it, add it. And we're not actually getting anything done. And don't get me wrong, it's a lot of fun to add things to printers, but why don't you start with keeping your damn printer simple, making it function, and then move on to something that actually makes sense in the long run. And I know that's hard. I am guilty as charged too. I have a big ass D-bot that you guys have never seen on the channel because it is broken. It needs a new Z-axis. And instead of just making the current Z-axis work, I decided to rebuild one out of a pair of SBR12 linear rails and a 1605 ball screw on some, what was that, 20 by 160 extrusion. It's really 20 by 80, but two of them extrusions. Like insane amounts of overbuilding. And now I got to pick the stupid thing up and put it on the printer. As we get into the winter time, we will be doing more live streams out on the main set because then I don't have to battle the weather here. I can just deal with the fact that it's going to be chilly, and chilly means I can stream for a while outside. So we will be doing more live streams as it starts to get a little bit cooler here in Florida. Doom Paints says, those features are awesome, honestly. I added an MMU to my 2.4, the Enraged Rabbit Carrot Feeder, and it's lovely, especially since I got to make it. And I get that, right? Adding things to your printer are amazing. But if you do it from the beginning, you greatly increase the amount of time that it takes till you can use your gosh darn printer. It's like people that buy Ender 3s to just immediately upgrade them from the get-go, and I recognize that that makes them usable, but you haven't even tried it as it is stock yet. And these are like newbies that have never used a 3D printer, are immediately upgrading their machine without understanding its quirks before they do it. That is a perfect example of feature creep where they don't know it. If you decide to do the ERCF, the Enraged Rabbit Carrot Feeder, once you've already built your Voron, and then maybe you want to expand it from the 4 to the 8 to the 12, that's fine. But have a working printer. Start at the 4, then go to the 8, then go to the 12. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense is to build the V0 and the ERCF at the same time, grossly increasing the time it takes to actually get your thing done, right? Like, you really gotta make certain that you know your printer. Because if you add all of these extra features, those extra features could introduce, and often do introduce, a lot of instability to the printer itself. And don't get me wrong, I love upgrading things. God, it's so much fun to do so. I mean, I did it with my D-Bot. It started with V-wheels and rollers, and after I started burning bearings, like literally the bearings would fall apart on the V-wheels, because these were really tiny micro bearings. I went to linear rails, and I never went back, because linear rails are awesome. And while they were expensive, it made sense. And I started about it this way. And I said, well, I could just go straight to linear rails in the beginning, but then I opted not to, because I need to see what it's like to begin with. Then as I make the upgrades, decide whether or not it was a worthwhile endeavor. Doom Paint says, I agree. I waited till I got the V2 running and then printed the ERCF on the V2. That makes total sense. Red Slice A says he's getting the Prusa XL with just one nozzle and figures he can add more later. I am going with the full 5 on that, because it should viably be reasonably polished coming out of Prusa, and I don't want to do the upgrades later on personally, because I'm not going to take the printer offline to do all that. I want it to work right from the factory. Madcat USA saying, I tried my Ender 3 quite a bit before making the upgrades that I did. I have upgraded things as I find that need for them done. Problems with print adhesion, changed the PEI sheet, extruder quit working, changed out the main board, etc. Yeah, that to me is not feature creep. That is just, reasonable upgrades. It's like, putting a nitrous kit on your car. Don't do that to stock cars unless you know what you're doing. Or adding a little spoolie boy, a little turbocharger, or some whistle gang, and get some of your superchargers in there. You're able to upgrade as you build, and not, right from the get-go. Because if you put a 200 shot of nitrous on your brand new car that you just bought, you're likely to blow the motor up until you understand whether or not you have the headroom to do it. Don't put 200 shots of nitrous into a regular car. It will kill it. Anyways, when we look at the feature creep, though, it is so common in many industries, and inventing is one of the worst offenders out of all of them, where we are working on a project right now. I can't get too much into it, but basically the client asked for something and we made it. And it was the most utilitarian model you could ever want. In fact, it used a lot of off-the-shelf components. It reduced their cost to get manufactured, and it would allow them to put their product in the stores to verify if it even has a target market, which objectively, I don't think it does, but that's not my job. I have explained to them that I don't like their idea, but hey, whatever. I'm happy to eat that humble pie when and if I do have to eat it. But now they want to skin it and make it look like, a fish, and, they want it to hinge like the mouth on a fish, and, they want the tail to be where you squeeze it. It is so abysmally feature crept that it went from a $1,500 design charge to we're coming up on $10,000 worth of additions that they've added before they've even tested if their idea works. And oh yeah, by the way, we're not the first company to have a crack at this. We are the second or the third. And the work they've gotten from others would never function. The one that I gave them would actually work, but they don't want it. They want something that's pretty. And I say, get something that's functional, verify that it even works, that it does what you want it to do. Then we can put lipstick on the pig. But they have no desire to do it because they've had a crappy experience with 3D printing. It was a ratcheting system that they were working on. And the person that printed it, for some reason, printed the entire ratchet mechanism vertically. So when you try to use the ratchet mechanism, it just snaps the teeth. I don't know why they would print it like this. It's honestly the hardest way to print it, but that's the way they printed it. So what the hell, right? Doom Paint says, I'm going to put an 800 shot of my stock 08 Versa hatchback and see how that goes. Things will happen. It will likely be your piston going into a low Earth orbit, or a rod coming out the bottom of your motor and giving you the ye old window treatment on your block, but, fine. Mad Cat USA says 75 Ford Pinto. Those things don't need help. catching fire from nitrous. They'll just catch fire on their own. Shout out to my dad and his Ford Pinto and eventually his Volvo 1800 ES that he wants back so bad. Those cars have gained a ton of value since he owned it. But yeah, there is no reason for them to go through this. And it upsets me because I've tried talking to them about it and they have already made up their minds. They want this thing to be the belle of the ball without even understanding if they have a target market yet. And apparently they have a patent, but I can't find it and they have yet to provide it to me. And here's the thing with inventing. If you come to me with a patent already, I need that patent because we need to verify that we stay within the confines of your patent. I don't know if they have a design or utility patent. And to recap, a design patent is exactly what it sounds like. It is a patent regarding the design of an object. If their design patent is this product that looks like a fish, then yeah, we have to do it that way, or we don't really work with their patent. But if their patent is on the utility, which is the usage of their product, well, then wait a minute, that might be something that we need, right? Then it doesn't have to look pretty. It just needs to be functional, which, again, I tell myself every damn morning, you don't got to be pretty. You just got to be functional. And I am all for being functional over pretty. But, you know, that's just me. So when we look at what we need to do here, right, I want to really make certain that everybody is moving in the right direction, right? My job as a product developer, as, you know, the owner of a company, is to help our clients get from where they are to where they want to be. And that ultimately means that we have to sometimes make decisions and have difficult conversations about, do you really need this, right? Does your, you know, I'm grabbing here. Let me cover everything on here that matters. Does your pill bottle need to ring your phone via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi when it's time for your next dosage? Or can you do something analog? If you can do something analog, why wouldn't you? And, you know, God, also putting this is not something that we've done for a client. This is just it's a medicine bottle. It's not something that we've done for a client, but it's something that I can see a client wanting to do, because inventors are very, you know, pie in the sky. You know, they want the world, but there's not a necessity for an understanding of how these things occur. And so. Yeah, like there's a thing there. So what exactly does this all mean? It means that feature creep can destroy your project. And when you look at adding extra time onto things, it won't work out well. But feature creep is not all bad. Right? If you know you're getting into feature creep, you can literally put it and say, all right, this is me starting to think way outside the box, but let's give this a chance and let's let the pot simmer, right? Maybe it's a separate pot with some different spices, and we're going to see if we like that flavor a little bit better, because it's all about the flavor, right? We're going to take you to Flavor Town. And if maybe there's something in there that actually has merit, right? You know, what if this product, instead of hinging like a fish, what if it, you know, had a double hinge to increase the force provided when you used it? What if it had a gear train mechanism or a drive shaft mechanism instead of a gear train mechanism, reducing the amount of gears needed, right? Technically, that's a feature creep, right? Do you really want to go from gears that are very easy to mount to a drive shaft system, which is not going to be easy to mount? Well, if it reduces the amount of parts that you need, but doesn't grossly complicate your project at all, well, it might make sense. And there's a point where feature creep is valuable. So for us makers, right, those that build 3D printers, that like 3D printers, that like making things with our hands, you know, we want to see every aspect of the project. And that's why I believe it is good to write down your wants and needs. It's one of the first things that we do when we talk with clients is say, give me your wants and needs. What do you want? What do you need? And how does that all work together? And let's kind of talk about that, right? A want would be, well, I want it to have Wi-Fi. I want it to have Bluetooth. I need it to have a MOSFET to control a motor. I need it to have a rechargeable battery. I need it to have a way to recharge it. I want it to have USB-C, but if USB-C is difficult to get for whatever reason, I'll take micro USB and then put out a USB-C variant later on. That's totally acceptable in most people's books. And then if V1 works, right? V1 that is very basic, the, keep it stupid simple works, then why don't we look at the next step, which is coming out with a V2 with Wi-Fi, a V3 with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, a V4 with Home Assistant built right in, or whatever it might be. Those are ways for you to easily work on making your product. And it's safe, right? Because you can test your target market with some 3D printed parts without all these features. And if people don't know that's an upcoming feature, they might not ask for it. But if they want it as an upcoming feature, they will likely ask for it. So when you go and you do your initial study, right? Your initial, hey, do you like this product? Does it make sense for you? Then it is best to ask and make certain, is there anything that you might want? Because if they all say no, I think it's good the way it is, then don't bother, right? Maybe then if you decide, okay, V2, I want to add some of these nice to haves, well, then you can add it, right? If it's a product that needs a skin, a shell of some sort, don't go for your licensing play right from the beginning. Not unless you want to, right? Produce the product, verify it works in a vast market, and then look at licensing it out. Because if you start trying to get a licensing deal from the beginning, and it's a specific license deal, let's say it's with a sports team, and you want to produce a product that would be sold at a sports arena. Like I was 2 weeks ago, I was in California. I was in San Diego. And I was 3D scanning the 49ers of all things. And so I was hanging out with the team, with, some of the staff there as well. And we were just kind of talking about product development. The teams really like to make stuff. And we were doing some custom 3D scanning for them. And, ultimately there were all these things, right, that they all wanted. But we were there for one specific purpose. And we ended up talking with some bosses, and they're going to do some more scanning, which I'm excited for. We might end up going back out there maybe 6 or 8 months. But, looking at all the different merch possibilities that we could do for them on a small scale, right? Maybe they wanted a custom, a custom figurines of their players, right? One of the those the director of performance mentioned it. He said, could we make figurines of these guys? I said, yeah, you want me to do that? He said, I don't know. I said, dude, I'm here. I need to scan their legs and arms anyways. You want me just to scan their whole bodies? He said, no. We'll book that for another time if we need it. I was scanning legs and arms for compression gear, right? That's what we were out there for. I'm not under an NDA for any of that stuff. Video to come soon, by the way. We did not film any of the actual scanning process, and that is simply because there's only like a 4% female audience on this channel, and I don't think the male audience wants to watch me scan shirtless, and they don't want to watch me scan football players and their skivvies. And there's really no easy way to just like blur the things we need to blur. So just kind of went with it and only filmed kind of when we weren't doing the scanning work. Anyways, ultimately, I think we're going to end up doing figurines for them because they can do a short production run. And when you have something with a dedicated target market, like the 49ers, like the Bucks, Tampa Bay Bucks, the Rays, LSU, pick your poison for sports teams, right? And you keep your supply short. Let's say it's a, run of 150 full color statues of each of the players that are hand signed and hand numbered by the players. Okay. That is something that they could do as a fundraising effort, a charity event, straight up cash money, baby. And they could sell them for $350. They'd probably sell pretty quickly. Their favorite players would sell pretty quickly. And they don't need to go to injection molding for that. They don't need to go to resin casting for that. But if then they wanted to, let's say add an NFC thing. So when you put your phone near it, it would bring up the player stats, or an RFID sensor that could integrate with a reader on a computer to constantly update with some of their, greatest plays or something like that. Or, electronic stuff is a feature creep in an object like that. It makes sense for us to start small and go large. And that's what they did. They wanted to try out this technology, see if custom compression gear makes sense for the team, and if it does actually increase their ability to recover when they're traveling, when they're flying after they've been injured, whatever it might be. And hey, that's a good market. And then there's a case study for the company that hired me to do the scanning, which is pretty freaking dope. So when we go back to physical product development and we look at adding features to your product that aren't electronic based, let's look at something that is printed rather than off the shelf, right? It is so valuable for us as makers to have the McMaster Car library and have so many functional objects. You can just go to McMaster Car, find what you want, and download it. Even further, there's a freaking integration right into Fusion 360, like direct into Fusion 360 for McMaster Car. And it's amazing. It's like absolutely amazing. But it means that we are more likely to print something than we are to use it off the shelf. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a project that we're doing that has some springs in it. I am not under any circumstances going to print the springs. And so utilizing the McMaster Car library was useful. But there's another product that we're working on where I am using like 95% off the shelf components. And I'm not going to 3D print them. I'm going to literally, buy them from McMaster, modify them as needed with 3D printed components because, well, that's cheaper, right? It's more cost effective for the client. So yeah. What then do we do when that comes up, right? When it comes up to just customize everything, add logos and all that. Hey, John Stern, how you doing? We look at why we want to make those changes. Why do we want to make those changes? We want to make those changes because, well, we want things to be different and special. So, but why? Why is it needed? Sometimes it's good to listen to that and say, well, if I add my branding to it, if I do this, if I do that, how do I make that function? And how do I make it so I don't increase my costs? Because remember, logos, embossed or debossed, you're making noises. Oh, shit, I think that's failing. Oh, well, nothing I can do. When we look at the actual process of adding things to the molds, what does that look like? When you start adding fine details onto a mold like a logo, God, that gets expensive. But if you're okay with it being debossed where it's raised from the surface, you can do that later. You don't have to do that on your original mold. You can easily just add that in later on. Your mold can be modified after the step. But if you're not ready and you haven't 100% refined what your outer casing is, then do not go into molding. Start with the 3D printing. It is safer, it is cheaper, it is easier. And like Red/Ace is saying, you can always laser on a logo in post. It is possible. I've never particularly done it, but it is definitely something that could be done. Although my laser is currently down, and I'm still trying to figure out why. I was going to turn this into a video, but I am waiting to see if we can get CloudRay to sponsor the video. Otherwise, it's just a real monumental pain in the ass to set up the laser to be used in a video. So I'm just going to fix the laser so I can get it back up and running. And then if CloudRay wants to sponsor a video to, change out the tube, change out the mirrors, change out the lenses, then we will go ahead and do a sponsored video with CloudRay, because that would be kind of cool. I think they'd be a really good sponsor for that video. I think there's a lot of mutual beneficial relationship there. But yeah, my laser tube is not firing properly, so it's arcing out somewhere. I just got to figure out where it's arcing out. Anyways, oh, there's a big feature creep there, right? I can order a new laser tube, right? It could be a dead tube. The tube is 6 years old. I could order a new tube. And if you want to upgrade your laser, it's the perfect time when you need to order a new tube. But if I order a new tube, I have to order a new, or if I order a different size tube, whether I go up or down, I have to order a new power supply. I have to order a new relay controller for it. There are a bunch of extra parts that I have to order. And if you haven't noticed, laser tubes are very expensive. Like, I got one that was like a little, iffy from Amazon. It was, like $350 from Amazon. CloudRay was going to charge me more, which is funny, but whatever. And I just bought it one, because it's Amazon. And if I can get my laser working with just the wiring that I bought, well, then I'm not going to change out the freaking tube, because my tube is still bright. But, there's part of me that, if we're going to change the tube, let's change all the mounts for the lenses. Let's stiffen up the frame. Let's do all of these things to where we've basically rebuilt the entire thing from scratch. And that's a monumental pain in the ass. It's a massive expenditure. And it would be easier for me just to call up my buddy at Aeon Lasers and just buy a laser from him. That's going to be better than the red and black 80 watt that I have, right? So just look at what makes more sense. Does it make more sense for me to spend 40 hours of man time fixing mine, or does it make more sense just to buy another one? So, anyways, how's it going? I don't know if I said hi to John Stern. If I didn't, hi, John Stern. Hi, Fernando Lopez. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out. Don't forget, if you do like these kind of live streams, make sure to leave a like on them. Subscribe if you haven't. And, yeah, if you want to support us, Patreon, YouTube channel members, links in that description below. But we run into problems when we have feature creep, where we have to be able to hear it, listen to it. It's talking to you. It's saying, you want to do this, you must do this. All glory to Hypnotoad. What? Hypnotoad. How do we listen to it? Right? Feature creep might tell us that, hey, you should do this, you should do that. But how do we look at kind of finding that happy medium where I do really want a bigger laser, just functionally larger, XY dimension larger? Well, larger lasers normally come with larger tubes. So why don't you just start with a bigger tube? Let's start with a bigger tube. Or, let's start with a more powerful power supply, because funny thing, the power supply for my 80 watt, I could also then replace it with a 150 watt power supply. And as long as I figure out what my maximum current capacity is for my tube, which is 25 milliamps for an 80 watt tube, I run mine at 20, just to keep it, a little bit happier. If you run them at their appropriate voltage and amperage ratings, you can run a 150 watt system all day with an 80 watt tube. Just don't overdrive it. Now, when I did the new power supply upgrade, I was against a wall. I had a project to finish, so I ordered the quickest one that I could. I did what I had to do. And it was an 80 watt, so I just have an 80 watt in there. But yeah. Listening to, hey, maybe you should add electronics to this. Well, okay, what do you want it to do? Well, I want it to have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, home link, NFC, RFID. I want it to have the whole gamut of stuff so that anyone who is using my interactive product is able to interact with it. I'm going to pick on Peter here because I think his product could easily have extra stuff added onto it, but he chose not to, right? He could have it run wireless. He could have it run wired. He could have it be Bluetooth, RFID. You could have NFC tags on the scent bottle so that when you put the scent bottle in, the system would recognize what it is and it could update the system. I don't know if Peter's done that, but I don't think he should. Not for a V1. That's a lot of excess work that a lot of people just won't use. It's similar to what Bamboo Lab has done. And I kind of like the way that they've handled DRM. They allow you to use whatever filament you want. But if you use their filament, which has an NFC tag in it, the printer will auto-recognize not only the material, but the color. And there's value to that. Is it a little more expensive? Yeah. Do I think there's an issue? No. I think it's totally fine. Okay, so the Micro does have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but no tags on the bottles. Okay. So there's our answer. And you can use your own battery pack. Good. I like that. I like being able to take like a, USB PD power bank and just charge it myself. Because especially when it's sent VR, so it's like it's on you when you're doing VR. If you're moving around, you don't want to have extra cables in your cable squid. So if Peter went to adding NFC stuff on there, he could then make all of his bottles come with NFC tags. Well, that means now he has to take his entire inventory supply of bottles, apply NFC tags onto them, program every one of those NFC tags, and be done with it. How bad is that print looking? I need to go stop that print because it is really starting to get bad. I thought it was going to be okay, but it's getting bad. Hold on. Right? Yeah, your cooling's not great. All right. Sorry. It was going to bother the ever-loving hell out of me if I didn't do that, because I can hear it. I can hear it making noise behind me, and it's very unsettling. I'm running too fast on my perimeters, and it's a very, very thick PETG part, so the corners are warping up. Thank God you're wearing pants, Bad Cat says. Yes, they're shorts, technically, but yes. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. But also, hello, ladies. Oh God, I'm gonna die for that one. Anyways, where was I? NFC. NFC would be so complicated for Peter, and while he could look at just his future orders, adding an NFC tag onto things so that the system could recognize what it is or what it is, it wouldn't make sense. Because the amount of effort that it would take him right now to implement that change on all of his inventory would be absolutely stupid. We did leave an expansion header through various feature add-ons. I'll bring one with to Earth. Awesome. I would love to see it. We'll have to shoot some content at Earth. By the way, if you are going to go to Earth and you are a subscriber or you are a viewer, make sure that you let me know. Because we will be bringing our Artec Eva, and I will be scanning people that tell me that they want to get scanned. I'm not going to go up to people and ask if they want to get scanned. We're not going to do that. Okay? If I don't know you, I'm going to charge you. If I know you, I'm going to scan you for free, and we're going to send you the data when we get home from Earth. I'm not going to process any of the data at Earth. Maybe. I might process day 1 overnight, but probably won't. But we're going to scan at Earth, which is going to be really cool. I'm excited for that. So if you are going to go to Earth and you want to get scanned, let me know. Anyways. Matt Cat says, wish I could West Coast, East Coast. Yeah, too expensive. I totally understand. I got lucky. Southwest has some cheap flights from Tampa up to Baltimore. But hilariously, the flights are the cheapest part of that entire endeavor. It is going to cost me more to have a hotel, be in a rental car, than it is to freaking fly. The flights are $240 total round trip, which is astronomically crazy to me. He would really love to see a Bay Area Rep Festival. I know that Maker Deck is looking to put on something in the West Coast. So if you do want to see that, make sure to shout out Maker Deck and let them know. Anyways, feature creep can be a massive problem. And if Peter can look at it and say, oh, you know, it would be kind of cool that the system could recognize the bottles that are in it. We won't require it, but it would be cool for it to have it on there. He can plan for it. Now, the cool thing for Peter is that he 3D prints everything, right? His product is completely 3D printed. It's 3D printed case and everything like that. The iterations for him are nowhere near as costly as it would be for someone who's doing injection molding, right? So for him to iterate from a V1 to, or let me use the Voron method, a V0.1, you could easily make those adjustments slowly throughout time. If you are going into injection molding, going to market, well, that's a very expensive design change that you're willing to make. And if you license it, and you know you're going to add more features to it, work with the company that you're going to be doing business with on the licensing side to say, I want to stay on as a consultant. I want to continue to develop this product to help you sell more with more features and deal with competition as it comes out. A lot of companies will appreciate the ever-loving hell out of that. So, yeah, you know. So what else do we handle, right? As a product development company, my job is to allow the client to talk about the feature creep things that they want, but then reel them back in, right? Let them cast it, but then I got to be the one to go ahead and reel everything back in. Because ultimately, I have to also look at controlling their costs. When they say, well, what if we added NFC to it? I said, well, that is going to add couple of $1,000s to your design side of things. It's going to change your mold considerably, I would guess, you know, maybe a $5,000 or $6,000 mold change, assuming you haven't cut the mold yet. If you've cut the mold already, woo, very expensive, very, very, very expensive to do that. So yeah, don't do that. Make sure you know very much what you're going to do. And if you do want to feature creep your mold, sell it so you can, you know, make the cost of your mold back and then release a V2, right? That's very common for businesses to do that. Like, we are almost done, I think, with the prototyping stages of The Politician, where I'm going to finally get them out to Patreon backers. I am so sorry I've been neglecting Patreon. I am hoping to get everybody caught up this month, but it has been like 3 months that I haven't sent out Patreon rewards, and I am so sorry to those that support us on Patreon. My sincerest apologies. But thank you all for your continued support and understanding that things have been a little bit sketchy here recently, but touch and go to say the least. All right. When we have this situation where it does make sense to add these features, but it doesn't make sense to add the features now, it is my job to step in and say that. Say, hey, I can see the reason to have your NFC, your RFID, your Bluetooth, your Wi-Fi, whatever. But I want to keep your costs as low as possible. And I know from a capitalist business, someone that is here to make money, that is a very, very weird thing to say. You wouldn't expect that out of a big company or a small company, I guess. We are not considered big by any mark, US or otherwise. I don't want clients to find themselves in a hole where they're now struggling to pay their bills. we had this with a previous client who I gave them their work, whatever they had left, totally for free. They came to me talking about finances, and they were telling me that, because of all these design changes that they've had and how they want this thing to be perfect, they're not able to pay their rent. They're having to work extra hours to try to allow themselves to eat. And I can't have that. Their initial product was so different from the one that they slowly feature crept in. And I was letting them know throughout the entire process, hey, this is starting to cost more money. Yeah, so it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. All right, it's okay. I will let it happen. Well, lo and behold, it got a hold of them, and they were so focused on the end goal, which was selling billions of these, that they didn't look at their current problems, which were, we can't really afford to be doing all of these design iterations and changes. And so, while I could have, they were unable to pay their final bill. And while I was at every right to hold their design hostage and not give it to them, it didn't make sense to me, right? I don't want them to be struggling to pay their bills just so they can pay me. It was like $600 or $700. We will survive. It's called the gambler's fallacy, Mad Cat. It's keep putting more and more money on the table in hopes the big payoff will come. Absolutely. It's a huge problem with inventors, gambler's fallacy. If I just risk my entire life savings on this, it'll work. Some higher power will help me. No. By and large, no. You're going to fail. By and large, inventions fail. And if you sit here and say mine will be different, you're crazy. Lo and behold, you're probably wrong. Now, I hate saying that, right? I want everybody to succeed. But chances are you're going to fail at this. And that's okay. That's why we iterate with 3D printing. That's why we step in when feature creep occurs. Because I don't want you to spend $10,000 to find out that your product has no effing target market. I want you to spend $1,000 and find out that you don't have a target market, right? Or I want you to listen to me when I tell you it doesn't have a target market. And if you really believe I'm wrong, prove it. Let my lack of faith in your product be your motivator to prove to me that you can do it. It's always fun when I get proved wrong. It's happened once? Yeah, I think once. And there was one product to this day, my NDA is finally expired on it, and I can talk about it. It was a product that I said is bloody brilliant. And I honestly saw this being sold to Kohler or Moen, a toilet company. Someone that makes toilets. This was a product that fit on either side of your toilet, where that empty space is underneath the part that you sit on, right? Where you can see the pipe. There's like all this empty space. And this was a product that fit on either side that allowed for just storage. And whether it's of, hygiene products, sexual health products, things that you don't want out in the open. It was lockable. It was, it would be painted in the same like white porcelain style look. So it would appear that it was part of the damn toilet. And I said, that is effing brilliant. That's a huge target market for people, right? There are, personal items that people don't want out in the open. And that's a great place to put them. And it's lockable, right? So it keeps the little hands out of there as well. That is so valuable. The product came in, we did some CAD for it, and they said they were going to abandon it. They didn't see a target market. And I'm like, I think you're wrong. And I asked if I could take over. And they said no. And I was heartbroken because, I know I could have brought that product to Moen or Kohler or one of the big toilet companies and actually made some good money on it. And I would have kicked them back, finder's fee or whatever. Because, damn it, that would have been a good one. I don't know if they ever patented it, but the NDA that they had on us expired about a year ago. So if you are the type of person that wants to do something like that, I still think there's a big market there. But because they paid for the CAD work, I would have to rebuild it that doesn't look anything like their current CAD. So there's a bit of a weird conflict of interest there for me, even though there are no contracts. I don't want them to think that I, just stole from them, because that's not what I'm trying to do. Someone should make an open source version, put it on printables. Do not 3D print things that go in the bathroom. Please don't do that. I don't want you all to get sick. That's not what I want. And that's how you get sick. So please don't 3D print things in your bathroom. Please. If it's not food safe, it's not bathroom safe. Think of it that way. But yeah, like, that product was totally not feature crept at all. They could have easily done things to feature creep. Now, the lock is technically a bit of a feature creep, but we all kind of agreed that if a kid gets in there, you don't want them getting into whatever you have in that cabinet, whatever it might be. I'm not here to judge people. Yeah, 3D prints are too porous and mold would accumulate. It's E. coli, more of what I'm worried about, right? It's fecal matter. It's poo. I don't want that on your parts and then on whatever, unmentionables you put in there. But, if they did mold it right in, right, where they molded shelves and all of that right in, you'd be pretty much set. All you have to do is add a door to it, and that's an easy thing to add in post. Hilariously, a friend of mine used to work at Kohler. Olivia, she's been on the podcast a few times. Oh God, oh the dreaded C diff has been mentioned in the podcast. Oh God, oh, nurses everywhere have just cringed. God, C diff. Anyways, don't fuck with C diff, basically. Anyways, God, that's gonna take me off track. But apparently, Kohler 3D prints their toilets before they mold them, and the molds they make are 3D printed. So they do initial. There's Amber. There she is. There's the nurse. The molds they use are 3D printed, so they can test it without spending a ton of money on a hardcore mold, because everything is just poured. It's a poured cast, right? So it would be very simple for them to look at adding those benefits. Olivia talks about her nightstand, her nightstand that is made out of Ultem. When she was allowed to print anything on the Fortis 900 at Kohler, she decided to print a nightstand out of Ultem 9085. And so we joke that it is her one nightstand that cost damn near $4,000 of cost. It's the most expensive nightstand I've ever seen. But shout out to Olivia. Feature creep will destroy product development cycles, because if we have to go back to the drawing board and look at adding a circuit board, adding holes for things, especially if it needs to be something that needs to be dishwasher safe, right? All of a sudden you want a plate with a built-in scale and it needs to be dishwasher safe. Oh my God, if you just added so much complication to this, I am not happy. Now, mind you, you're going to pay for it, but it's totally something you could do. Let's say you want to do portion control, right? You want to figure out by weight, which is a pretty terrible way to do things. I think this is not a good product. I'm just kind of rolling with an idea here so we can use an example and not have me talk somewhat poorly about some client decisions in the past. Anyways. So a plate with a built-in scale, right? Now you have to have a force gauge. You have to have a screen. And oh yeah, I wanted to not only have a screen, but I wanted to, integrate into my Weight Watchers app, right? So it can track the food. And I can, let's say put on, I don't know, a chicken thigh. And I can say it's a chicken thigh, and the notification come up and say, you just put food on your plate. How much, what did you put on your plate? Oh, I put a chicken thigh. Okay, it's chicken thigh that weighs 200 grams. Cool. Next, then you add on some carrots. Okay, and then it can say, well, I had 200 grams of chicken, Now I have 50 grams of carrots. Okay, it's 50 grams of carrots. That would be better than counting it the way that you currently do. This is actually becoming an idea that's actually not bad, but fundamentally complicated to produce, but a cool idea. But really, the problem is, how the hell do you clean it, right? Like, it'd be a lot easier just to have a scale that does this. That's not built into the plate, but I digress. You know, give you guys good ideas for product stuff, by the way. If there's not already a scale that integrates for food into a Weight Watchers app, that would be so cool. Or MyFitnessPal or whatever it might be. That is so cool. Yeah, you could tear out the weight of the plate and then whatever, food you add onto it. But does it need to be Bluetooth? Does it need to be Wi-Fi? Or can I just plug my phone into it? In that case, Bluetooth might make sense. I don't need Wi-Fi. Does it need to, go into ALEXA or your, multicolored alphabet overlords? No, it doesn't need to do any of that. But, having something like that, sure, you can do it all manually. Is that a worthwhile feature creep? I don't know. I've got a kitchen scale. I use it when we're cooking and baking because we use grams, because we're not savages, because that's the way you measure things, in grams. You don't do it by cups. That's stupid. Anyways. But yeah, if you started to add food and the scale communicates with your phone like Mad Cat is saying, that'd be pretty cool. But I don't want it to connect via Wi-Fi. Bluetooth is totally fine. Because I don't want, some SaaS program to be tracking how much food I eat. That's dangerous. I know there are regular human scales that do it, but I don't know if there's a kitchen scale that does it. But either way, feature creeping that, you could have an NFC tag that when you put your phone near it, it would detect whose phone it was, right? Oh, okay, it's Billy's phone. Well, okay, this is what Billy has. This is what Billy is eating. That way you don't have to go through and pick, well, who's eating today? Could all be like that. Is that necessary? No, it's not. But it'd be something that you could easily do. John Stern says, when I joined my company 6 years ago, there was far too much feature creep going on. In some cases, it led to product launch delays, and our business is somewhat seasonal. That cost the company millions. You're right. When you deal with a product that is incredibly seasonal and you start feature creeping it, you can miss big deadlines. Like, I'm likely going to miss the biggest deadline for the politician because of these changes that I'm making, because I want this thing out before the first snow in, the north of the United States, because it's designed to help keep your printers under consistent temperature during the winter. That's what I want to see it do. But if I can't get it done by then, we've got ourselves a problem, right? And like Sharp Looter says, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth often come in one package. That's fair, but it is very easy to just disable the Wi-Fi or build Bluetooth in on its own. Bluetooth modules you can get straight up on their own without a Wi-Fi chip on them. Yes, you can just add an ESP32, which will have both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, but then you also have to deal with more energy draw. If you use a Bluetooth low energy signal, you really wouldn't be dealing with too much extra in the form of battery drain, because a lot of these scales aren't rechargeable. Right? Yeah, Madcast says not here. It was 98 yesterday. It's 86 outside right now, 28C for the non-savages. And it is currently 83 degrees in my office. But, that's the way she goes sometimes. Be careful about when your product deadlines are, because if you miss a seasonal deadline, guess what? You're going to let it sit until the next year. And if you don't work on it, from when you missed your deadline to, the next crunch time, you're going to be dealing with consistent product delays that will really, really slow things down for you. And I don't want to see that happen. So how do you solve this, right? You have to constantly step back. You need someone who's going to be a devil's advocate for you. And if that means that's me, let it be me. I'm going to charge you for it, right? $150 an hour. But it's very easy to take an hour of my time and say, Grant, this is what I'm working on. This is my project. Can we walk through it and see if I'm feature creeping it? And this is something that we do constantly with our Invention clients. We start and say, what are your wants and needs? I will then present them a list of things that I believe are feature crept, and I ask them to validate why these things are needed. Why do you need these? If you can't give me a good reason why you need it, well, then I'm taking it out. And you can add it in for a V2. Now I can say, well, the scale doesn't need Bluetooth. Okay, it kind of does, right? Yes, you could plug in your phone. Who the hell is going to do that? I'm not. I'm not going to plug my phone in. I want Bluetooth. I want it to connect to an app that is either an app that I'm built or it's an app, that's like MyFitnessPal that already exists that can connect via Bluetooth. But does your can opener need to have Bluetooth? No, it doesn't. Does your, do your pots need to have temperature sensors in them? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Is it cool if it does? Sure. But we already have thermometers that are relatively cheap. Adding electronics onto a pan is a disaster. Unless you're using an induction cooktop. I wonder if you could pull energy from an induction. I'm not getting into this. This is feature creep beating the hell out of me right now. There are places where it matters. There are places where you want to listen to it and say, what is my reasoning for feature creeping? And if there's a legitimate market reason for it, listen to it. But don't look at making it perfect to start. Make a prototype to verify that what you're doing is actually something that you want to do. Because if it is, great, then do it. But if it's not, stop. Because you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste the time of others. Let me see if there's any other topics I need to cover here. Manufacturing delays we talked about. Added time we talked about. We want to, like, the goal of a product development firm is to make you money, right? I want you to make money. I know this is weird, right? I want you to make money. I want you to make money. My job as a product developer is to help you make money. And if all you're going to do is not make money and you're going to sit there and spend it, I mean, by all means, I'm happy to take your money. But it is my duty, at least personally, I think it is, to try to help you control that spending. Look, if you want to go buy a beautiful Rolex, by all means. But if you can still enjoy yourself with an Invicta and get, pretty decent quality for 1/100th of the price, start small. Go get your ice when you can afford it. Sell your first big product, then go buy your Rolex. Go buy your, Patek Philippe. Go buy your nice watch later on. Don't overextend yourself. Don't overextend your project. Go slow. Like Fernando says, remember the kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. That's why that is the thumbnail for this video. I want you guys to be safe about it. Because, yeah, again, I will gladly take your money. But it's mean. It's not in my best interest to do it. Because if you come back and say, this product, it doesn't, it's so expensive to produce. Why did you let me do all of this? Because obviously I'm going to be the one that gets the blame. Not the person that told me to do the things. I'll be the one that gets the blame. I don't like that. I want someone to say, I'm so glad that you pushed me to remove these features. The product is selling amazingly well. And now let's add these features back in for a V2. So we get customers that come back to us for a second time and they buy the product again. And whether it's they're going to give their old one to somebody else, they're going to sell it at a garage sale, we don't care. We care they're going to come back and buy the product again. That is such a huge value for the user out there and for the business that is selling to the user to provide consistent value in a means that makes you want to upgrade, right? Does your iPhone 10 still work fine? Yeah. But do you want the new fancy iPhone? Well, yeah, it's got features that Android has had for 5 years. I want those features on my iPhone finally. So I want to upgrade. Yeah, making jokes for Apple. Love that. I do really want LiDAR on Android, though. That's like the one thing that Android doesn't have that I really want. I want a 3D scanner on my phone, damn it. So cool. Anyways, yeah. We want to see you succeed. And if that means you come back to us a second time and you say, all right, let's add the NFC into the micro. Let's add the Bluetooth into the, the water bottle, right? So the water bottle can tell you how much water you've had throughout the day. That would be a pretty easy thing to do. Add a little module that detects how much, where the water level is, and then would ping your phone with how much water. Like, your phones can remind you to drink water, but your phones can't track if you've been drinking water. So, Mad Cat says, I need to learn how to use my phone as a scanner. If you have one of the newer iPhones, there are plenty of apps that let you do it. If you have, I just upgraded to a Galaxy S20 FE. Of course, had to put the cat stickers on it. You can use Polycam. But if you don't have LiDAR built in, it just won't be as good as it'll work. Mac has a simple pressure sensor on the bottom of the bottle. Yeah, that would be better, but different fluids have different densities and therefore different weights. I would put a level sensor inside of the bottle. So when the sensor isn't detecting movement, it's like when the bottle is still, it can read how much is in there and then send it to your phone. And if you haven't had water in a while, it'll say, hey, please go ahead and take a few sips of water, and then it'll be good. And it can remind you, oh, apparently this is already a thing. That's how good the idea is. It's already a thing. Would it work on double vacuum insulated bottles? I don't think it would. I don't think it would, because they're Faraday cages. Huh. Well, all right, let's go to Amazon. Let's go to Amazon and find a smart bottle, because I want to see what one looks like. Oh God, why do all the smart water bottles that I'm seeing have RGB on them? That's really not necessary. And I'm the first person to say that RGB is necessary on things. Why? Yeah, okay, every sip counts. Here, I'm gonna put it in the chat for you guys so you guys can see it. It's a $70 freaking water bottle. Oh crap! Hold on. Do that. Can I send that? There, I can send that. Oh man, that would be just so weird. Yeah, ultrasonic level sensor and accelerometer, all the electronics in the lid. God, ultrasonic leveling sensor. Now we're getting fancy. Yeah, so this water bottle, it is double vacuum insulated, 24 hours cold, works with ice. That's all in the lid. So is it actually an it is. Huh. Okay. Honestly, pretty damn cool. Oh no, they put theirs in the base. Huh. That is so interesting. These are not, I did not think this was going to be a product, but $70 is expensive. Having a lid, though, right? Having a lid that you could adapt, an ultrasonic sensor would actually work perfect for it. Huh. Turn any water bottle into a smart bottle. That would be cool. Son of a bitch. Oh, and apparently this thing has in-app purchases. Let's see. Mad Cat sent one as well. Let me take a look at it. $20, 3-in-1. Glows to remind you to stay hydrated. Does that measure how much water, or is it just a timer? I think this one is just a timer. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it's just a timer. Which is fine. I'd rather have something that sends me a message on my phone. That way, if I'm at like a client meeting, I don't need my bottle, lighting up with RGB vomit in the middle of a client meeting. Although that would be hilarious, I don't need that happening. So, okay, it does exist, right? And as Sharp Looter says, you could build something with an ultrasonic sensor of some sort in the lid to determine that, but you would have to make certain that your ultrasonic sensor is waterproof. That is probably the more complicated thing, is dealing with waterproofing everything. Oh, and the water bottle's a Bluetooth speaker. That is feature creep. That is feature creep for no damn reason. Who the hell? Why? It's gonna sound like ass. Why? That's feature creep. That is feature creep. There is no reason to have that. And I get it. If it has a speaker in it and it can alert your phone somehow, there's no reason it couldn't be a Bluetooth speaker. But why? Like, damn it. That's such a stupid idea. And yet it's on Amazon selling money, so who am I to say it's stupid? I'm just a user that won't use it. And apparently the one that I found, the $70 one, is hand wash only. Jeez. Acoustically transparent plastic cover. Stop making me think, Grant, it's my day off. Oh, gosh. Well, then you look at a tactile transducers, where a tactile transducer can also operate like a piezo sensor. So it can not only determine how much flex is on the bottom of your bottle, but it could use the water as a method to transmit the sound. So as you drink, the sound quality would change. God, I would hate that. Why? This is literally feature creep at its finest, right? I'm seeing these $70 bottles, and the biggest thing is like the UI sucks. Yeah, the Hydrate Spark does it all in the lid, or not in the lid, in the base. So I'm guessing it is a weight sensor of some sort, which would make sense. It's nice and easy to do. But is that something that people would actually buy? Let's see. This thing has how many reviews? 3,000 reviews. Holy shit. Okay, apparently people will buy it. Son of a bitch. God, all right, well, I don't bat 100. I've never claimed to bat 100. Here's a great feature creep that my dad loves, and it's the dumbest thing, and my father absolutely loves it. The Ember Mugs. And if you have a family that is really hard to buy gifts for, go buy them an Ember Mug. It is a mug that has a built-in heater. That's all it is. But it connects via Bluetooth. And if you set the temperature to, I don't know, 135 degrees. No, that's too hot. 115 degrees. And you want your coffee at 115 degrees. You pour in boiling hot coffee. Hot coffee, right? It will tell you when the coffee has cooled off to your temperature. And it will maintain the temperature that you want. Chris Catless says, I'll take a Yeti over an Ember. I know the Embers can be a little bit delicate. My dad uses his all the time and will constantly text me. And I like it. I think it's cool. He's like, I honestly thought this thing is the dumbest thing on the planet. And then I used it, and it is amazing. He loves it. He loves his Ember Mug. John Stern says, my wife bought me an Ember Mug. It's very silly, and it's too small for me. I like big mugs of coffee. My dad said the thing for him is that because it keeps the coffee hot all day, he drinks more coffee because it's warm. He won't just toss it because it's cold or go and heat it up. John says, I like my drinks quite cool. I don't need them to be kept hot. I've wondered if Ember's going to come out with the other side of the fence, which would be the, using a Peltier module or something to chill as well. And I got a buddy, and I wonder, I'll have to reach out to him. If I can get this, I'll send it to you guys. But he works for Lumafield, and he has scanned an Ember Mug. Lumafield makes CT scanners, and he has scanned an Ember Mug, which is objectively pretty cool. Yeah, like really friggin' cool. And, you can see all the insides and how it works. You can see where the batteries are. But it would be cool to have something that can also cool your drinks rather than heat them, because it is just a Peltier module. The issue is when you're cooling the drink, you have to remove the heat. And yes, the issue with Peltier or Seebeck coolers that they are incredibly inefficient. That is true. They are incredibly inefficient. But the Ember just uses a coil. That's all. He just uses a coil of wire, which I can't imagine is much more efficient. So, but yeah, like Ember Mugs are crazy feature crept, right? But that's literally how they ride. That's their job. And then you look at the one that's the to-go container, and it's got a freaking LED screen on it to tell you what the temperature is. Versus the mugs just have a LED indicator light to tell you if it is good to roll or not. So again, feature creep is dangerous. It's fun, right? It's fun to really look at what could a product be. But you also have to think about what is practical, what is reasonable, and then realistically, what makes sense. Also, there are apparently UV sterilizing water bottles. How? I can't. I just can't. I need to close this Amazon page because I can't. You have to look at what is practical, what is impractical, what is expensive, what is affordable, what is fast, right? Remember the rule: good, fast, cheap, pick two. If you want good and cheap, it's going to take a long time, right? It's how this works. And if you want fast, it's always expensive, right? Unless you don't want it to be any good. Listen to the experts around you. You can talk to friends and family, but I highly recommend going out and asking members of the general public. Ask, when we're live, we'll do something like that. I've always talked about wanting to do a live product development call on the channel. So if you guys would want to see something like that, let me know. Just have to be something that we're going to develop in open source, because clearly we're going to talk about it. So, be weird. But yeah, apparently resistive heating coil is very efficient. I guess that makes sense. Well, either way, guys, just be careful with feature creep, right? And let it run its course. Like, let it ride, right? Ride the feature creep wave and see what it feels like. And then decide how much of it you want to add. Does your water bottle need to be a Bluetooth speaker? No. Should it be? No. Because you're probably going to be the asshole that just plays it out in public or on public transit that everybody wants to murder. So don't do that. Don't be that person. But, would it be cool if your water bottle could tell you how much water you've drank? Hell yeah, it would. It'd be really cool. Just get out there and make stuff. That's what this is all about. This is about to not only motivate you, but to have you make sure that you keep yourself grounded. And if you need help, you guys can book a 25-minute call. Oh, I think I might have bumped it down to 15. I don't know. You can book a free consultation call right on the website, 3dmusketeers.com. Go to the Contact Us page. There'll be a button off to the right-hand corner. It doesn't look like a button, but it is, and it will book time directly in my calendar. But yeah, that is it. I think we're going to call this one. Has been not a seldom viewed episode. It's been weird. I would have expected a lot more people hanging out today, but hey, whatever. You win some, you lose some. Any final thoughts, guys, before we want to call it? Give you guys a couple of seconds, but yeah, just be careful, guys. Just be careful with your feature creeping. I know it is easy to do. I know it's fun to do. I know it's something that we all want to do. And as makers, it is very, very easy for us to get into it. But you need to remain honest. If you don't remain honest with yourself, with your products, and most importantly, your target market, because if it's not something your target market is going to need, that means you have a target market of precisely one, and it's you. And I don't want to see someone go through all this effort to develop a product that has no need in the general market. So that's it, guys. Make sure you like the stream. Subscribe if you haven't. And help me out. I got to think about what we're going to do for the weekend of Earth, because I will be up there from Friday through Monday, which will be the days that we would normally podcast. Do we try to do a podcast at Earth? How do we handle it? And who do we have on? Or do we just have one on, the Monday when I get back, or the Tuesday? I don't know. You guys tell me. That's all I got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. Stop feature creeping. I know you're doing it. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.